Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiffany Scroggs, and I'll be leading us through today's Preparing to Bid session on the Vehicle Maintenance and Repair Services statewide contract that is out now by the Department of Enterprise Services. We are recording today's session. Feel free to unmute and ask questions at any time or reserve your questions till the end. Also, I have my chat open and Lisa could read the chat or interrupt me if something pops up there that I don't see. But first, let me advance the slide over to our first agenda item here is why are we here today? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what the Apex Accelerator is and who I work for. And then we'll dive into the solicitation, its history. We'll review the opportunity itself. And then we have an interactive component. So the folks on the line that are in business in vehicle maintenance will have an opportunity to participate in today's session. So the recommendation is that you have the solicitation ready, as well as the checklist that we sent you via email prior to this session. If you don't have it, squawk loudly in the chat and we'll try to get that to you for when we get to that section of today's presentation. After that, we will discuss a bid or no bid decision matrix that we've also sent you, and then resources to help you long after our hour of time is up today. So thanks again for coming today. It's a delight to be here. I work for the Apex Accelerator, which is a private not-for-profit housed at the Economic Development Council in Thurston. And we're funded in part by the U.S. government with support services also funding us through the Department of Enterprise Services and Washington State Department of Commerce. And we have locations all across the state, including over in Spokane and Tri-Cities and down in Vancouver. And we're mainly housed at economic development type organizations or chambers of commerces, as well as Green River College. Our whole mission and why we exist is to increase government contracts and subcontracts to businesses within Washington State. If you're calling in and you're from outside of the state, that's okay. You're more than welcome to stick around. We do have colleagues in other states that do what we do wherever you're located. We have a strong focus on serving small, minority, women, and veteran-owned firms in our work, and we have a team of 17 all across the state. We're pretty good at what we do, and we invite you to go ahead and put us to work with your firm. This is our team across the state. You'll get a copy of these slides with more hyperlinks to those email addresses, and you're welcome to call our main line and talk to Tori at our intake desk. So this is the fun part. Let's dive into the solicitation. So Department of Enterprise Services manages statewide contracts. They used to be called master contracts with over 1,500 different vendors and almost $2 billion in annual spend. So these statewide contracts are used by state governments. That's a requirement that the state governments go ahead and different agencies use those contracts to get the goods and services that they need. And it's also used by local governments and tribes who choose to use the state contract because it's the best thing out there for them to get what they need. So DES many years ago, I'm guessing at least a year and a half or 2 years ago, took a look at the vehicle maintenance and repair services spend within Washington State and determined that that was likely over $1 million in annual spend, and decided that it would be a good idea to put it under contract. So rather than agencies having to use fleet services or use their existing processes, DES is recommending that they use the statewide contract once this contract is in place. So it's a new contract. It's going to be new to you all, as well as new to Department of Enterprise Services and new to the agencies that are invited to use it. The history of is that the Department of Enterprise Services has been communicating a lot with the vendor or the business community, trying to get a really good handle on your industry, your needs in terms of what is commonly used to solicit your services. So they did a RFI, or request for information, back in November of 2022. They issued a draft request for proposal in July, and now the final request for proposal is out now. This is the final document that may or may not be amended as it goes along, but the deadlines in there and the terms and conditions in the sample contract that they give you as attachment D, I think Appendix D, those are legal documents that we need to dive into today to make sure you understand all the nuances throughout. So because it's a new solicitation, we won't be able to see a lot of detail with historic spend. We can open up the state's checkbook and do a business search to see if you know of a competitor that's been selling to state agencies. You could type in their name on that checkbook link and take a look at how much spend they've been doing with the state. You can also take a look at WEB's reports. WEB's is the Washington Electronic Business Solutions website, where hopefully you all are registered and are able to see the solicitation and download the documents. You can also do a WEB's report there, and we can help you out if you get stuck on that to see if there's any historic spend by keyword. You can look up vehicle maintenance maybe on there and see. I did a quick search and I didn't find a whole lot, but that might be useful to take a look at. And you can also do a public disclosure request on spend. Remember, in the public marketplace, it's public information who the government's buying from and how much they're spending. So it's not uncommon to ask for this information if it will help you determine your strategy or determine your pricing approach to doing business with the government. So the current opportunity is on WEBs. WEBs, again, is the Washington's Electronic Business Solution. It's where they post all active solicitations, as well as some award notices. You can check your commodity codes when you log in and make sure that you're getting emails. So this is a screenshot of what it looks like when you're inside WEBs. It'll have that customer reference number. It'll have the title of the opportunity, the description, the date posted. It'll have Alec's names there, and we're delighted to be joined by Alec today. This is not an official DES event. I work for a private not-for-profit, but it's really nice to have DES folks on the line today. And they won't be answering your questions in any official capacity, but Alec and his team are welcome to chime in if there's something important that I missed that they want to share. Note that the commodity codes are all listed there, and DES has done a nice job of listing all the potential commodity codes that you might be expecting to see on this. You want to make sure that your profile, the commodity codes listed in your profile, matches the commodity codes on this solicitation so that you're sure to get future opportunities and other updates to this particular opportunity. Further on, if you were to scroll down on WEBs there, you'll see a little link that says vendors downloading, and you can click to view more detail. And these are the businesses that downloaded, I think, 2 or 3 days ago when I updated my slide deck. So this list hopefully has grown since then, but you can see the company name, their email, and their phone number. And the idea is to allow for you, the vendor, to understand potentially who you're competing with or potential partners down the road. So a lot of times in government contracting, there's opportunities that are best done as a partnership or a joint venture, or it's just simply nice to know who else is out there doing what you're doing. If you've downloaded this opportunity and you don't see your name, it might be that because you've opted out. It also, but also if you do see your name, you want to make sure that your status is correct. So I've included the legend of the status there. So SB is small business, MN is self-certified Washington mini business. So you can kind of see the legend there as you go down the line. And that becomes important later when we get to the section where we talk about the reserved awards. So this current opportunity, I went ahead and pulled up my profile within WEBs because I keep talking about your profile in WEBs to make sure that the commodity code is correct. You also want to make sure that your status as a small business or a veteran-owned business is correct. And you can see I circled my own ownership profile there. I am considered a Washington small business, but if I was certified with OMWBE, I would expect to see that there. OMWBE is the Office of Minority Women's Business Enterprises, and they certify firms as minority or women-owned. The Washington Department of Veteran Affairs does the veteran-owned business certification. So if you think you might qualify for that, you still have time to get certified. That certification process is very quick once you upload your documents over to Shamika. So further on back to the WEBS opportunity, if I were to scroll all the way down to the bottom, that's the most important part of any WEBS solicitation announcement is the attachments. So we recommend that you download all the attachments and you save them in a folder on your computer that you can find them again. This includes your solicitation documents as well as the amendments. And we already have one amendment listed, which is the slide deck from the pre-bid meeting that happened last week. We recommend that you read and understand all of the documents and be aware of embedded or linked documents within these documents. I'm not sure if I've seen a whole lot of that with Alex's opportunity, but we've definitely seen it in the past, and it trips people up. So once you have all the opportunity documents downloaded, now you have to kind of dissect them. And they're not written as a novel. They're not fun reading in that sense. So we recommend that you go ahead and start with exhibit, the competitive solicitation, the first attachment there, which is going to outline what we're talking about today. And then we recommend that you skip down to exhibit B. And eventually you'll have to read and understand all the documents, but between the competitive solicitation and exhibit B, you tend to understand a lot of what the state's needing from you as a business seeking to do business with them. So this is kind of the process. Let's zoom out a little bit before we zoom back in. So we recommend you read all the documents, especially that solicitation exhibit B. That's going to be your very first step. The second one is to decide if you're going to bid or not. And that's, you have a choice, right? Businesses are, small businesses especially, do not have the luxury of bidding on everything. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to make a bid or no bid decision. Then you want to organize your approach. So how are you going to tackle this thing that is submitting a proposal to the Department of Enterprise Services? How are you going to organize your capabilities in a format that the state is expecting you to format it in? Then you want to assemble a bid, and then you want to submit. Today, we're going to talk about the first two arrows here. We're not going to get into how to organize your approach or how to assemble and submit the bid. If you'd like one-on-one advising on that, our team is standing by, excited and ready to assist you. So here is Apex Accelerator's pre-proposal checklist. So of course, we have to start with a disclaimer that this checklist is not intended to be inclusive of every element of the solicitation. It's designed as a starting template for you. The idea is that you take this Word document, we don't PDF it for you, we want it in Word where you can customize it to meet your own needs. And note that we help businesses sell to every level of government, federal, state, or local. So some of these items might not be applicable because they're wrong industry or wrong level of government. And so you want to make sure you delete those and replace it with something that is applicable to the solicitation. So this is where we get into the interactive portion of today's event. So I'm hoping we have some brave souls who aren't too busy multitasking on today's webinar to help me out, but we're going to work on filling this out together. So if you don't mind, go ahead and open up the DES solicitation document that was listed in the attachments list. And unmute and say hello or type into the chat that you got that solicitation document open. While you are all feverishly working to open that document, Lisa, was that something that we sent them, or were we expecting them to find that on Webs?
That was not sent.
Okay.
The bid and no bid and the checklist are in chat. I can throw that in chat too.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So if anyone has gone to Webs and downloaded the solicitation, you are who gets to help me out with my proposal training today.
I have the solicitation open.
Thank you. Jamie, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, you and we're going to get through this. What is the solicitation number? Have you been able to locate that?
Yes, it's 15722.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
gold star for Jamie. She's got this.
Yeah,
so this is how you would fill out the checklist. Because it doesn't read like an engaging novel, my brain needs something to do while I'm reading it. So I'm not just glazing over some really important things that I need to pay attention to. So I pull up, every time I read a solicitation, I pull up my checklist and the solicitation and I start filling it out. So what, and this kind of helps pull out the critical information that's going to help me be responsive to the solicitation. So Jamie or anyone else that wants to hop in, what is the deadline to submit?
I read it previously. I'm looking now. Looks like December 8th.
Boom. Perfect. And you found that on page 5. I'm assuming maybe it's written elsewhere as well. But that's helpful for me too when I'm filling out my checklist. Not only did I write down the time, the deadline to submit, but also where I found that so I can go back and double check myself. So what time does it give a time?
Not in this section, but I can
Yep.
read further.
So I couldn't find it in there. And that might be, we don't want to make any assumptions about when a bid is due, because once the bid is due, they cannot accept late bids. So if they want to extend the time, they're going to have to issue an amendment to the solicitation to extend the time. So we want to make sure we understand that if it's close of business at 5 p.m. Pacific time, or if we have till midnight that night. And it seems really far off, December 8th, but I promise you it'll be here very quick. Working on the solicitation now in your project schedule for getting your solicitation in is important to know that time. Did anyone, or Jamie, do you have the pre-proposal conference date on there? What time was that held? When was that held?
Let's see. Sorry, I was scrolling through to see if I saw any other information.
No worries. And feel free to help Jamie out if you also have the solicitation open. When was the pre-bid conference?
On October 4th.
Perfect. And it was held at 1 p.m. It wasn't recorded, so if you missed it, you didn't hear it, but you can definitely take a look at the slide deck that has been posted on Webs. And I believe you found that on page 7. Is there a site visit date? So this is another reminder that this checklist is for all industries and all levels of government. So the site visit date is not applicable. That's a really common thing to have in a construction solicitation. So I just wrote NA there and moved on. When is the cutoff for Q&A? Does anybody see that? September 20th through November 15th. So a nice long Q&A period there where you can really dive into the solicitation, understand all of the elements of the sample contract and all of that, and ask your questions. If your questions come in after this date, there's no guarantee that DES will be able to respond to them. And keep in mind that all questions that are asked are usually done in a written format, and it goes to Alec, and he combines all of those into a document that gets posted to the Web's website. So it'll list the question and his written answer so that everybody gets to see the Q&A. So if there's a question that you want to ask that you don't want your competitors to see, that's kind of a difficult thing to do now, because all questions that come in will be posted for everyone else to see. So there's no undue advantage given to any one bidder. The issue date of the solicitation was September 20th, and that was also found on page 7. And then the reserved award, so that's what DES calls it. There's also, we can call them potentially preferences in government contracting. Sometimes there's set-asides in government contracting or any other competitive advantage. And if you're a small business, sometimes you want to really pay attention to these. And in this particular case, there is a reserved award for Washington small or veteran-owned businesses. So you want to make sure that you understand the criteria for those and whether or not you qualify, and make sure that your Web's profile matches that accurately. And that's on page 2 of the solicitation document. So we already talked a little bit about commodity codes. This is a question I get a lot of the method of proposal submission. You're like, do I submit on Webs if you're used to submitting on a portal or something? No, you submit via email. And the email needs to be unzipped, and we recommend that it's under 25 megabytes to ensure delivery and receipt of your submission. That's on page 14. So how will you be evaluated? This is a question that I like to look at right away, almost right after the deadline. I try to find the answer of how is the government going to be evaluating the businesses on this particular opportunity? Does anyone see that yet? This one's kind of a tricky one, Jamie. I don't know if I want to put you on the spot.
I'm reviewing it right now. I don't know off the top of my head though.
I'll help you out. So when I'm talking about how you're going to be evaluated, there's points given. And in this particular solicitation, there's points for non-cost factors and there's points for cost factors, how you relate in terms of your cost. There's also points for complying with Executive Order 1803 with the recycled oil requirement or recommendation, coolant, prompt payment discount. There's other ways to get points. So I think out of all the if you add up all the points on whatever page that is, page 8, you can kind of get a sense of how important cost is versus non-cost. And this helps inform your plan. If you are a small business and you know that your competitor is cheaper, you might still have a good chance because the non-cost factors is 500 points, almost half of all the points is for non-cost factors. So the state realizes that they might not want the absolute cheapest place in town to repair the cars. It might be that a mix of reasonable pricing plus those non-cost factors would be the ideal way to go. You could also look at Exhibit C at this point. That's where we're going to really dive into price and understand how you will be evaluated. The next line in our checklist has to do with the type of contract, and there's a firm fixed price, FFP, and if that's the case, is there a price escalation clause? This became really important during the last year of inflation. A lot of our businesses that we worked with were in firm fixed price contract, meaning that price that you gave when you bid it was firm and fixed and was not subject to any sort of price escalation, even if your materials doubled in cost, even if your labor went up 40%. There wasn't really a mechanism in there to fix that in a timely fashion. So you want to know that risk of doing business going into any government contract. With this particular one, it's in Exhibit D. So this is a little bit of a trick question because I told you to open up the solicitation document and be familiar with Exhibit B, but you also want to make sure that you read thoroughly Exhibit D. This is the contract that if you win, you will be awarded. So understanding all the terms and conditions in there, especially the ones that impact your price, will help you out in the long term. And so on page 4, it talks about how the pricing is firm and fixed for at least 1 year, and that there's an economic adjustment that's tied to an index. That so read that, understand the index that ALEC will be looking at, and DES will tie it to so that you understand how that all works. No surprises. So that's the checklist. I know you are all very busy people, and you have people coming and going out of your facility at all times. If you could find a quiet place and open up these documents or print them off. Lee says, who's helping me out on the training today, is a big fan of printing it off. Hold up your checklist and just go through and try to fill out as many lines of the checklist as possible. And at the end of the checklist, there's lots of room to add your own important components that you pull out of the solicitation. And with this information, you can effectively decide, can you compete, should you compete, and what your strategy is going to be. Which leads us into the final component of today's session, which is the bid or no bid decision. So we recommend that every business, large and small, make a bid or no bid analysis based on your company's goals, your proficiency, and your likelihood for success. And what this does is it forces you to slow down and read the solicitation, because like I said earlier, small businesses don't have the luxury of wasting time on something that they can't bid effectively on time for, or something that they won't win. And it allows you space to think about why you want this work and how you'll bid competitively. And sometimes this bid or no bid decision can be executed pretty fast. I'm not talking about taking weeks and agonizing over every element of the opportunity. I'm talking about just taking a quick pause and aligning your company's proficiencies and your company's goals with this opportunity and seeing if it's a fit. So this is the bid or no bid self-assessment that you can customize to make it your own. I suspect for what it is that you all do, vehicle maintenance and repair, there's not a ton of opportunities to bid. I would imagine that governments tend to use a statewide contract type thing like what the DES is putting out. So these opportunities don't come feverishly at you very often. So you want to just be aware of it, and you've done that. You're here, you've found the solicitation early, which is fantastic. And now you just want to make sure that you're ready to bid. So you ask yourself some of these questions. Is it within the scope of what you can do? And you would rank that 5 to 1, 5 being absolutely, this is what we do all day, every day. I have 6 cars on the lift right now type of thing. Or a 1, like, no, I don't really have a shop. I don't know. I can't do X, Y, and Z. So you would rank yourself 5 to 1. The second question is, how likely is this contract to be awarded and utilized? And you would think that if government's soliciting for services, they're going to be awarding that contract and they're going to be using that contract. But within government, sometimes things change. DES is actually pretty good about this, but other agencies that we've heard of oftentimes will put businesses on an on-call contract and then never use them. So it might be a good question to ask other agencies, if there is such an opportunity that you're bidding, like, how often do you think this will be utilized and what evidence do you have to support that thought? Because we don't want you wasting time bidding a contract that won't be used. But like I said before, DES has done significant, I guess, assessment within their own agency and within the state government to assess that there will be significant spend on this particular opportunity. And it's highly likely, because it's a required contract for agencies to use, that it will be utilized after award. Do I have the cash flow to perform? So that's when you need to look up the payment clauses, which we haven't even touched on. So you would probably want to go to Exhibit D, which is that sample contract, and take a look at how the invoicing works. If it's not spelled out clearly there, you can, of course, ask DES, like, how will that work? How quickly do I expect to be paid? And that'll help inform your cash flow needs. Will it be profitable? That's all in how you determine your pricing, and making sure that you understand your cost of doing business. Do I have the time and resources to put in a bid? So you do need to allocate resources to put in a bid. And if you're sitting at your vehicle maintenance facility right now and you have a customer at the desk that you're trying to help while listening to my voice, that tells me that you need to work on allocating somebody else to staff the desk so you can go work on this bid. It's really difficult to put in a quality bid, and with that constant interruption of the phone and customers coming in. So try and find a way to set aside time to go ahead and do a quality bid, and you have lots of time. So the state gave you plenty of time, but don't wait until December 7th to start assembling your bid. Do you have the staffing? Can you meet the delivery schedule? These are questions that only you can really self-assess and understand in your business if you can. Let's see. I think that's all I want to cover right here. I want to give you an alternate way to think about the bid, no bid self-assessment, which is adding in like what a 5 really means. So taking that first one, is the work within the scope of what you can do? If it's 100% within the scope, yes, put a 5. If it's a stretch, then put a 2. And you would set this scale of 5 to 1. See, I think that's all I really want to say here, except maybe one other point. If you're the business owner, keep in mind that you might be filling this out differently than if you're the shop manager or if you're the mechanic, right? So how would you fill this out differently if you were the mechanic? Are your mechanics already overtaxed and working long hours? And can you add the state vehicles on top of your current client load? Can you handle it? I guess would be just another way to just sit back and think about it, and maybe involve other team members as appropriate. So now let's zoom back out. Where did we go? So we've looked at the solicitation documents. We've decided to bid or not. Again, don't agonize over it, but do take a minute just to pause and see if it's going to be a good fit for your company or not. And the next step is going to be to organize your approach. Like, okay, I think I have a good grasp on what the state needs to see from me in terms of pricing and past performance and all the other non-cost elements. How am I going to kind of assemble my bid, and what schedule do I need to make sure that I'm assembling it by the deadline? Even before the deadline would be good. And if all of that sounds intimidating, or you just want a fresh set of eyes on your draft proposal, the Apex Accelerator Advisor team is happy to do that with you. You can email us at info@washingtonapex.org and be connected to one of our advisors if you're not already. So again, top tips: ask questions now and identify any barriers to your participation. The state really wants businesses and small businesses and veteran-owned businesses to participate in this solicitation process. They are eager to have full coverage across the state. And if there's a barrier to you participating, I highly encourage you to let DES know. We recommend too that you ask for a debrief regardless of if you win. If you're new to government contracting, a debrief is an official meeting that you ask DES for after they post the apparent successful bidders. You only have a few days to ask for the debrief, and you would, at that meeting, get a better sense of where your solicitation response went well, what needed improvement, and it allows you to learn from this whole process of bidding a government solicitation. And if you didn't win, that's when you can have a little pity party, but then let's focus on what you can do. So at that point, you would want to see if there's any successful contractors that need subcontracting, if that's allowed. You want to target agencies who aren't mandated to use the statewide contract. So potentially go to another agency in your area and see if they need your services. And number 4, triple double check. I've already said this before, that your Washington in-state small in webs, and if you're eligible, go ahead and get certified as a veteran-owned business. And Shamika's pretty quick on that, but you don't want to wait too long because she's just one person within the agency that processes all of those. So those are Tiffany's top tips. And at this point, we have lots of time for questions. I do want to, while you're formulating your question and finding that unmute button, note 2 events that are coming up. There's the North Puget Sound Contracting Conference in Everett and the Meet the Bigs over in Spokane. We will all be there with smiles on. Feel free to stop by the Apex table and say hello. We'd love to meet you in person at those events. With that, I'll turn it over to Terry, who has his hand raised, or her hand raised. Go ahead, Terry.
If we already do work for state agencies like the DOT and we don't put in a bid, do we not get those jobs anymore?
That is an excellent question. And Alec, are you allowed to answer that, or you want me to do my best?
I can answer that. State agencies, like DOT, will be required to prioritize vendors on the contract, but they would still be able to do some spending with vendors not on the contract.
Okay.
If they were to choose to do business with somebody not on the contract, does that create extra paperwork and justification on their end?
It does, yes.
Okay. So it's easier for WashDOT to use the state contract. Okay. Thank you for that. Terry, did that answer your full question?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
There was a comment from Ernesto, and I'd love for him to unmute and just comment and say.
Hey, Ernesto.
Hi.
Yes, hello everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
good.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I just noticed in one of your first slides, I think in the legend, you had micro and mini as like in Washington micro business, and that's actually not the case in webs. So to get the in-state preference, you'll want to choose small business when you do it in webs, because only the small business option actually does the self-certification for in-state. I have seen some solicitations differentiate them in like the bidder profile. They'll say, are you in Washington? Yes. Are you micro, mini, small? Then you can choose. In those cases, it can be okay. We still recommend just choose small across the board, so that way there's no confusion. But in webs, if you're in Washington, you want to choose small, regardless of whether you're micro or mini. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I'm backing up to that particular slide deck. So I was in my profile, and this might be a good learning opportunity for me as well. So
You
this
were
is
on slide 8. Yeah. There you go.
so I would have it as Washington Small Business. Is that what you're referring to, Ernesto?
I think so. Is it slide 8? Can you open up slide
Slide
8?
8 is the
Slide
legend
8
from
Yes, there you go.
Labs.
Yeah, you have MN and MC as self-certified Washington, and it should just be mini business and micro, not without the self-certified Washington part.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
this is an image from Webs, like a screenshot from the bottom of Webs.
Oh, so that
So
is in Webs.
Yeah, that might be something that we share
Okay.
with our buddy Joe.
Yeah, so that might be something for our end. Thank you. This is
Mhm.
good for us to know too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry I don't have the full screen up there, but it is cut to like I took a screenshot.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, so in that case, we'll check with our Webs team to see if that needs to be updated. But yeah,
Yep.
or maybe it was already updated, in which case, great. But just for the time being, just to be safe, choose small business if you're in Washington.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yep. We don't want to have any confusion on that. Does anybody
Okay,
else? Oh, go ahead.
Those were the only 2 that came in.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah,
Can I
Chris.
give you one more?
Please.
Hey,
absolutely.
I'm wondering about sublet, getting those validated or approved. Is there a sublet process to get, for example, if we have a particular OEM car that comes in and we don't have the ability to test it, if we send it out and bring it back and validate it, is that acceptable? For example, a Chevy versus a Ford.
Mhm.
Is that something that's acceptable? Do I need to get them certified, the sublet, or how does that work?
That's an excellent question to put in writing to Alec.
Okay.
Unless Alec, do you want to answer that today?
I couldn't answer that off the top of my head, so in writing would be great.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and Craig,
I'll do
you
that, Al.
have- Okay. Yep. I don't need
Yes,
to
I do.
punt the question,
do.
but you wouldn't want me answering that because I don't work for
No,
DES.
that's good. That's good. Very good. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, great question though. That figure that out now so that you're not surprised later if your plan is flawed in some way.
That's it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have another question.
Please.
If we're the only shop in our area that bids, will we more than likely win, or could it go to counties elsewhere in the state?
Yeah, I would imagine that's at the discretion of DES.
Okay.
They're going to do what's in the best interest of whatever their needs are. I mean, I could guess what their needs are, but I wouldn't want to. So Alec, do you have any comments on that? Or you want to pass?
Want to make sure I understood the question. Do you mean if you're the only shop in the area, are you likely to get the bid, or if awarded, are you likely to get the business?
Get the bid.
If you were the only shop bidding in a county, then yes, you would get the award. And we do have multiple awards per county.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Please.
We have 3 locations, so in 3 different counties. So should I specify those counties and the counties around that the vehicles could come to? They can drive to our county, or how does that work? Is there, for example, we're on the edge here in Anacortes, so the islands, San Juan, Lopez, all those, we take care of quite a few businesses there. I'm wondering if I need to select those counties, or I can just say the whole state and you guys decide where you send for the repairs or the updates, maintenance.
Alec?
You would select only counties where you do have a physical location. We would be leaving it up to purchasers on the contract to decide if it was more useful to go.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Anybody else have any questions? It's a
I actually have a question. There are several folks that did not register, so I don't have your emails. And if you would like to have documents or anything that we had today, the presentation was sent out as well. Please put it in chat so I can get that information to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I think we'll also be doing a post webinar survey, if you don't mind taking 2 minutes to let us know if this was valuable and how we could improve it for the next time. We welcome that feedback, and we welcome the opportunity to work with you one-on-one through our advising services. And we wish you the best of luck on this particular government contract, as well as any more in the future that you go after. We want to see more firms winning these types of things in Washington State. So please put us to work for your firm. And with that, I'll stay on for another few minutes if anyone else has any lingering questions that they're formatting now.
I don't have a question, but I did have a couple of things I wanted to clarify. The bid due date is December 8th, and it is until 11:59 p.m.
Oh, great.
And I also wanted to offer an explanation of how the reserved awards work. The reserved awards for small and veteran-owned businesses, if you are applying for one of those awards, you would be competing for them only with other small and veteran-owned businesses.
Wonderful. Thank you for those clarifications. All right, everybody, you have your homework. You have a lot of work to do. I wish you the best of luck. Please let us know how we can support you. Thanks to DES for hopping on the line today and for all the pre-work that you did to get us to this point with an active solicitation. We're excited to help get some good firms on there for you. So with that, I think we're adjourned. Thank you.
Yes.